Just the thought of having to do a field repair like changing a flat in conditions like this where you're wet and cold can be intimidating. And while there's a bunch of great home videos on the internet to show you how to do the repair of a flat tire in the comfort and serenity of your own garage, those can sometimes be, how should I put it, somewhat idealistic. In some of those, the tire peels away from the rim. And I get it, those are instructional videos, but in the real world, nothing is that easy, and tires are harder than hell to get off the rim. But it's not that intimidating, and we'll show you some tricks to get it done quickly. First things first though, my tool chest. So this is a winter repair at night. You'll need some light. Consider using a helmet light. These are safer in the winter anyway, but for a repair like this, they're ideal. Carry a brand new tube. Don't bother with a repair kit. Repair kits require that you're able to locate the source of the air leak. And on a night like tonight, when it's cold and wet and there's dirt all over, you're never going to do that. Just buy a brand new inner tube. Keep in mind, these are not one size fits all. Your tire will require a specific size, and that will be indicated on the sidewall of your own tire. You'll need a set of tire irons. They're sold in a package of 3. You really can only use 2 to fix your tire, but they break once in a while, so carry all 3. Lots of different styles. Some of them have little notches here that will anchor the iron as you're getting the tire off. That's personal preference. I typically don't use those, but some people find them useful. This is a cool stop tool. It's a lever device that helps bring up the last bit of tire onto the rim when you finish the repair. It can really reduce the total duration of repair. Plus, it reduces the risk of tearing the inner tube, which can happen sometimes if you're using just the tire iron. So it's worth a few extra ounces. You also need a way to get air back in the tire. I carry a small inflator like this, weighs a few ounces, and I get my tire up to 60 pounds pretty easily. And remember that this is still pandemic time, so be sure you have your mask with you. So prior to your repair, make sure that you get off the trail. Most of us use headlights when it's dark, but not everybody. And if there's someone who doesn't have a light coming down the trail at you at 15 miles an hour, they may not see you because you now have disassembled your bike, and those rear flashers might not be flashing down there anymore. They're flashing over here somewhere, so you could get hit. And also, when you're doing a repair, especially in remote areas like this, make sure that you're looking around once in a while, because there's people out there that might see a stranded rider as a target for robbery or worse. So let's get at it. So we'll start off by moving the chain all the way to the outside of the cassette. You want it on that smallest cog, the one that's closest to the derailleur. That just makes it a lot easier to get the wheel on and off the frame. Then go over to the left side of the frame, undo the quick release lever, and the wheel should fall pretty easily off. When you've got that out of the way, store your bike up against a tree, or if there isn't a tree, it's okay to put it on the ground. Just make sure you have the derailleur side up. Carefully inspect the tire. First of all, make note of the direction of the treads. Sometimes that direction is noted by an arrow on the sidewall, but quite a bit of the time it's not. So just make sure you get the direction right so that you can get it back on in the correct direction when you're done with the repair. Look carefully over the whole tire for anything that could be sticking out of it. I found this in my tire on the way back from a long commute. Didn't find it in, I had a flat tire. Okay, so we're going to be removing the tire on the opposite side of the rim from the tire valve. So locate that, and we'll start over there. If it's been a while since you've repaired that tire, the tire material might be sticking pretty hard to the rim, so work that away for it first. Now you can go to your tire irons and work one of them up underneath the bead and pull it through. A lot of those tire irons have notches like that, and some people use those to stabilize it when you're doing the repair. I just use my wrist and my hand for that. Insert the other one into the tire about 6 inches from the other end. Pull both of them down. See that bead of tire comes right over the lip like that. You can then use one of the irons to strip away from you, since it's in there, or towards you. I could never get it to work very well when I'm going away, so I usually pull it back towards myself. It takes a little bit of effort, but it eventually comes through. So go ahead and strip that whole thing around until that bead is off. The bead is that stainless steel loop that actually defines one side of the tire. It's what's used to hold the tire into the rim, and it's what makes it so hard to get those tires out. So go to the tire valve and unscrew the anchoring screw. And you should be able to lift that damaged tube right out of the rim and throw that in your panniers. Okay, so it should be pretty easy to muscle the rest of that tire off of the rim. You shouldn't need a tool for that. Now take a look at the inside of that tire. Sometimes a fragment of glass or some such thing might have gone all the way through and wasn't apparent on your external inspection, but you'd be able to pick it up here. Once you've cleared it visually, just run your hand in there too to make sure there isn't anything small. Now line up those treads properly and put one bead of the tire, one side of the tire on there. Shouldn't need any tools for that. Now you just have to locate the hole in the rim so that you can get the inner tube in there. Might take a little bit of time to locate it because you've had that tire around quite a bit. Okay, there it is. So you take your new inner tube and get it all wrung out as best as you can. Take the valve, put it through that hole in the rim, and then make sure that you secure that with the anchoring screw. Right out of the box, those tubes tend to be a little floppy and flat, and they're going to seem like they're too big to get in there, but you'll be able to work them in. It seems like there'll be a bit of extra material. There's a way to deal with that. We'll talk about in a second. All right, so now take your tire pump and put just a little bit of air in there. You should inflate it so that the tube just has a little bit of roundness and plumpness. It stays into in the tire a lot easier like that. It's really hard to keep dirt out of all this, by the way. Do your best, but it's wet and dirt is everywhere, so try your best to keep the large pieces out of the work area and out of your tire if possible, but make sure to inspect that when you get done. Now, we're going to put the tire back on here on the same side as the tire valve. Remember when we took the tire off, we started on the side of the rim opposite the valve, but on this repair, we're putting the tire back on. We'll start right at the valve. Use your hands to work that into the bead. You'll feel it click and snap as it gets into place, and it'll eventually take you to this point where you just can't seem to get it to go farther. So this is where you use that tool called the Cool Stop, which is that lever device that allows you to lift up that bit of bead and put it up on top. It's actually not a quick process. You'll have to start on one side. You'll feel it kind of snap. It'll seem like it's actually just slipped off, but it hasn't. It'll snap and snap and snap, but it's taking the bead up little by little onto the top of the rim. Eventually you'll get to a point where it just rolls right over. Double check to make sure that those treads are in the right direction. And should be ready to go. The only reason to look at those treads, by the way, is if they're on backwards, you don't have quite as much traction. Your ride home could be a little more slippery. So when you go to inflate the tire, your goal isn't to get back to 90 pounds. You just need enough to get home. And you don't want to overinflate this either. There may have been some small twigs or pine needles or whatever that got in there around the work area. And if you overinflate it, you might puncture your new inner tube. So it should be just a tiny bit spongy. Firm, but certainly I'm not looking for the full inflated pressure. Okay, so we're ready to go. You can take the wheel, set it back into the frame like this. Make sure you lay that chain right around that outermost cog, and check both sides to make sure you line it up in the frame properly. You should start to, you'll feel kind of a click as it gets into place. You might need to push that derailleur forward to get it to go. When it looks like it's all set, make sure that you press down on the frame a couple of times just to make sure that it engages properly. And then when you're set, go over to the other side and tighten up the quick release lever. It may take a little bit of adjustment. It may have loosened up, so you'll have to tighten up that axle screw on the other side. But eventually you get to the point where it should fold over pretty firmly, but not so much so that you can't get it to come open again. Now you're done, make sure that you haven't left anything behind. Things can get out of that pannier pretty easily when you're in the process of this whole thing, and it's night. And you're back on the road. Congratulations, you have done a field repair under adverse circumstances. So a couple things you noticed from the video. The first is that dirt is everywhere. The amount of material you have to clean off of your equipment in the wintertime, dirt is a constant companion when you're trying to get this stuff done in the rain at night. Do your best to try to keep it off of stuff. You never will. There'll always be stuff that gets into the tire and everywhere. But as best you can, particularly in that area between the inner tube and the tire, that spot, if you end up getting a large piece of wood in there or a big pine needle and you inflate the tire, you might have a puncture before you get home. And on that topic, don't overinflate it. Spongy is okay for this. When you get back to your garage, make sure that you take everything apart and clean all that stuff out. Make sure that there's no little pieces of wood or pine needles that get into that space between the inner tube and the tire. Watch the video a couple times if you can and practice it. There's also a short summary video that I put together at the end that's worth a look. Finally, if this is interesting and you found it useful and you'd like to see more, leave a note below with some suggested topic ideas. I'm Chris Herder. Next time you're getting ready for a trip on the road, remember that fortune always favors the prepared.
Istanbul was Constantinople, now it's Istanbul, not Constantinople, been a long time gone. Constantinople, now it's Turkish delight on a moonlit night. Every gal in Constantinople lives in Istanbul, not Constantinople, so if you've a date in Constantinople, she'll be waiting in Istanbul. Even old New York was once New Amsterdam. Why they changed it, I can't say. People just liked it better that way. So take me back to Constantinople. No, you can't go back to Constantinople. Been a long time gone. Constantinople, why did Constantinople get the works? That's nobody's business but the Turks. Istanbul. Istanbul. Istanbul, even old New York was once New Amsterdam. Why they changed it, I can't say. People just liked it better that way. Istanbul was Constantinople, now it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. Been a long time gone, Constantinople. Why did Constantinople get the works? That's nobody's business but the Turks. So take me back to Constantinople. No, you can't go back to Constantinople. Been a long time gone. Constantinople, why did Constantinople get the works? That's nobody's business but the Turks. Istanbul.